விண்ணாளும் தேவர்க்கும் மேலாய வேதியனை மண்ணாளும் மன்னவர்க்கும் மாண்பாகி நின்றானை தன்னார் தமிழளிக்கும் தன்பாண்டி நாட்டானை பெண்ணாளும் பாகனை பேணு பெருந்துறையில் கண்ணார் கடல் காட்டி நாயேனை ஆட்கொண்ட அண்ணாமலையானை பாடுதுங்கான் அம்மானாய் சித்தம் தெளிவீர்கள் அத்தன் ஆரூரை பத்தி மலர்த்தூவ முத்தியாகுமே. Very good evening to you all. It gives me immense pleasure to be presenting a paper as a part of this conference on Sri Rama, coinciding with the Sri Rama Navami, which is around the corner, and this year especially with the temple of Ayodhya being the topic of discussion across the globe. It is very relevant to be discussing about Rama at an academic platform like Gnana Advaitha Peetam, where several such spiritual and religious discussions, thought processes are nurtured. Of the several speakers who've been here since yesterday, I think my topic is slightly deviating from the core, while majority of the topics, in fact all of the other topics, if I could say so, talks about devotees of Rama. This paper of mine is going to be on devotion of Rama. Rama's devotion to Siva, that's the topic. And I should make one clarification here. This paper is completely academic. My adherence to Shiva tradition has got nothing to do with the topic that I am presenting here or the contents of it. More importantly, this topic was Swamiji's choice. He in fact insisted that this topic should be spoken about at this conference. So with these two clarifications being given, I'm just taking you through whatever little academic content I managed to collect as a part of this small research which I've been wanting to do for long, thanks to this wonderful opportunity that Swamiji bestowed on me. Ramanathan, Sri Rama and Sri Siva. That is the title officially. Sure, Rameshwara Kshetram as one of the foremost Tirtha Kshetrams in India, which can only be put at par with none but Varanasi itself. Of course, it is a Jyotirlinga Kshetra. It is a Dvipa, an island in the south of India. A Dvipa, an island which finds its sanctity being mentioned in extremely ancient texts. If you consider Sangam literature to be the oldest of the compilation of Tamil literature, well, Rama's story and his adventure to Sri Lanka and back finds a direct mention in Sangam literature. Rama's attempt to cross the ocean by building a setu, a bridge across the mighty ocean, through which the entire army of monkeys managed to parade and enter the mighty, well-protected country of Lanka and the war being engaged. So all of those finds direct references in Sangam literature itself. So it has to be a particular point, and Ramayana needs no introduction for its geographic value. So much of geography, like as if Valmiki managed to travel the entire distance with Rama himself. As Rama traverses the entire landscape of the country, from well-planned ancient cities like Ayodhya to deep forests like that of today's central India, cutting across hilly terrain, perennial rivers, jumping from mountains to mountain, traveling through the Deccan Plateau, valleys, whatnot, up until the sea coast, the coastal region of Rameshwaram, from where the Setu Bandhanam happened. So the geography as described in Ramayana is very, very evident. And as a part of my own interest in traveling, some parts of Rama's journey which has been well documented and travelogues have been done, I did take up attempting to cover some aspects of it in the same route which is widely believed to have been walked by Rama. Of late, I think it's a very popular travel itinerary proposed by the railways, Indian Railways also, and it is already picking up very well. So doing the Ramayana circuits. So I should say the slokas from the Valmiki Ramayana, the descriptions that Valmiki Maharishi has managed to give, assigning whatever date to Ramayana several centuries back, hasn't really changed much, especially in the deep forests. That is something to be really appreciated. There can only be two possibilities. The spiritual prowess of Valmiki Maharishi probably managed him to visualize every scene, every landscape that Rama literally walked, or he should have nevertheless traveled the entire distance. I think the first possibility has more probability. So undoubtedly the Adi Kavi, the Mahakavi that he is given enough description of the various cities, towns, villages and other wild zones that Rama has managed to traverse. And nevertheless, the climax of Ramayana is of course of the Rama-Ravana Yuddham, which was the sole purpose, in fact, if I can say, of Ramavataram itself. Because it begins at Ksheerabdi, Thirupparkadal, where the celestials, the Devas, approach Sriman Narayana and elaborate to him the problems that they are facing, the tough situation that they are going through because of Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and pray to him to find a solution for it. Of course, Mahavishnu, that's the first Sharanagati, in fact, in Ramayana, where the Devas perform Sharanagati to Sriman Narayana, and Narayana, the most benevolent and merciful, he promises to get this sorted out, and that's how Rama Avataram happens. So starting from there, the very purpose of Ramayana, Rama Avatara, is Ravana Samharam, and that it happens in Lankapuri is all described. But the bridge that is being built, connecting the Indian landscape, the South Indian landscape with Lanka, that is one very important point where Valmiki Maharishi, for whatever reasons, hasn't very clearly pointed out to a city or a settlement right at the coast. Undoubtedly, it is in the southern coast, and the closest way to connect Sri Lanka from today's Tamil Nadu is right there from Rameshwaram. So there is the name of the town as Rameshwaram is not mentioned. And of course, Rama's Shiva Puja that he performed there, as it happens, has not been mentioned too. There is no direct reference in present tense. In present tense, I am making it very clear. Rama's Shiva Puja that is widely believed to have happened, according to other sources, is not definitely mentioned in Valmiki. And so, this question about where exactly is Rameshwaram coming up from? If anything, the most strong reasons for the sanctity of Rameshwaram is Rama's visit. That is where it all begins. The story of Rameshwaram as such happens there. Of course, many ancient towns, spiritually rich and religious towns, sacred pilgrimage spots, all have more than one story associated with it. Many accounts, in fact, about probably the first appearance of Swami and how later many devas, many rishis, in fact, asuras have all come there, prayed to Swami there and have been blessed. But Rameshwaram has this as its point one. This is exactly where the story of Rameshwaram begins. It was Rama, nonetheless, who installed the Shivalingam there and worshipped him. Yeah, so where exactly in Ramayana is this described or discussed? Definitely not before Setubandhanam being done. Definitely not before Rama managed to get into Lanka. Definitely not before the war or nowhere there. But the tradition of the Kshetram, Rameshwara Kshetram, starting from its name, has the involvement of Rama at multiple levels. Yeah. So, Sri Rameshwaram as a Kshetram, which is considered at par with Kasi, this is in fact the point that I would say is the oldest tie which brings or bridges the gap between north and south of India. If you want to look for concepts that binds India together, irrespective of its varied cultural paradigm that the country is, it is these kind of traditions which includes the Kashi Rameshwara Yatra. Though they are separated by hundreds of kilometers, Kashi and Rameshwaram don't look like two different words only. It is always a twin. We always call them as Kashi Rameshwara Yatra. Yeah, it is the Yatra in fact has been very well prescribed, and later period Puranas which speaks about Rameshwaram at length describes how the Yatra to Rameshwaram has Kashi as a part of it, and the traditions that one will have to follow when they visit these two shrines. So Rama's involvement at this Tirtha Kshetram has no doubt with respect to the Kshetram, the Kshetra Mahatmyam, the Murti, Tirtham and the Sthalam. So the name of the town, the name of the deity and the sacred water body there, all of it involves Rama very clearly. So Rama's involvement is understood at that level. Now, this is as much as Varanasi as I told you. This is a Tirtha Kshetra. In fact, many eons before, when the tradition of building temples of this scale didn't really get into common practice, it was the kshetram and the tirtham there which demanded a pilgrimage to that particular place. That is why even today, with all the changes happening, the traditionalists insist that whenever you visit Punya Kshetram, staying there at the Kshetram at least for one night and having a dip in the sacred water body associated with the Kshetram is made a mandate. It is only by doing these two activities, your visit to the Kshetram can be checked in the list. It is not about hopping 10 Kshetrams in a day and finishing it all off. A visit to a Kshetram is only complete by staying there at least for one night and taking a dip in the sacred water body associated with the Kshetram. So these two aspects, which is of course visit to the temple, the town, staying in the town and taking a bath in the sacred water body, or the Murti, Sthalam and Tirtham, all three involves Rama here at Rameshwaram. So it is a Tirtha Kshetram where people visit to literally have a dip, which is believed to cleanse them of all their sins. And in Rameshwaram, pretty much like Kashi where having a dip in the Ganga is a mandate, Rameshwaram has close to 22 identified sacred water bodies, and the 23rd is of course the sea itself. So having a bath, a dip in all these wells as an organized travel inside the temple complex is what is popular there. So people going there actually make sure that their time in the temple includes a dip in all the water bodies, then changing off and then visiting the Murti enshrined in the temple. Stalapuranam of Rameshwaram and the temple traditions that are followed till date as involvement of Rama. The Sanctum Sanctorum, which is according to me 10th or 11th century late Pandya period construction, has the Ramanatha Lingam, the Ramanatha Swami as the Lingamurti is called, situated right at the center of the temple complex of course, and that is the Moola Murti which is believed to have been worshipped by Rama. Rama's visit to Rameshwaram has got to be understood in two parts, one before the war and the other after the war. Valmiki has no reference whatsoever as to what happened after the war. There is no reference to Rama visiting Rameshwaram along with Sita and praying to Shiva there. But nevertheless, half a dozen later period Puranas, including Satvika Puranas, in the list of Mahapuranas, very clearly mentions Rameshwara Mahatmyam, the Kshetra Mahatmyam, which speaks about this. Nevertheless, Valmiki in his Ramayana makes a very, very subtle, but at the same time, a strong proof to Rama having visited or Rama having prayed to Shiva right at the island, which he points out to Sita on their way back to Ayodhya. As they were traveling in the Pushpaka Vimana, floating up in air, Rama has this habit of describing it all to Sita, because she was not a part of his journey for the last 1 year or so, close to 10-12 months. So on their way back, Rama recalls all those incidences of which Sita stood no witness and explains to her, like a very, very caring husband, telling her, this is what this happened, see, this is that place. And so when he spends his time that way, there is this one particular spot where he gives a very, very subtle, at the same time strong reference to having been, within quotes, blessed by Shiva. And that slokam is what is used as one strong pramanam. This is in Valmiki, of course, as a strong pramanam with respect to Rama's supposed prayers to Shiva before having attempted constructing the bridge which connects the Indian landmass with Lankapuri. Yeah, so this should have been the point of origin from Ramayana for a kshetram like Rameshwaram to mushroom out of nowhere and be compared only with at par with Kashi and being made a mandate to all Indians, irrespective of regional differences, irrespective of faith differences. Anybody who belongs to a traditional Indian religion would want to visit Kashi and Rameshwaram at least once in their lifetime. Yeah, irrespective of which region of India you belong to, what is your mother tongue, which tradition, what faith system, any Indian religion you belong to, Kashi Rameshwara Yatire is made a mandate. Yeah, so that is how strong the connect of Rama to this little town, which is otherwise actually insignificant. It's a small island, like many other islands on the east and west of Indian coastal region, but this has achieved so much of sanctity, so much so that references to it in Tamil literature starts from around the end of Sangam period and there are direct references to the temples by 7th century religious bards like Appar and Gnana Sambandar having visited the place and have sung about it. So with this introduction, let me get into the context in the temple traditions. Of course, as I told you, the Sthala Puranam has Rama's visit documented not once but 2 times to Rameshwaram. One is, of course, before construction, before commissioning the bridge. So he comes here to this particular island, manages to reach the island by just walking across. And there is, of course, the Sharanagati that the Samudra Raja did, and how he had to pacify the rough tides, and how the army of monkeys managed to cross. So at some point, Rama reaches a particular island, and from there, where again quoting the Ramayana sloka, which I will be doing very shortly, Rama is believed to have installed a Shivalingam, worshipped him. There it is believed that Mahadeva blessed him abundantly. Again, I quote Rama here, Mahadeva blessed him abundantly, and that Shivalingam rests there. With the blessings of Mahadeva, it is believed that the war was, of course, victorious on Rama's side, and Sita was retrieved. And on their way back in the Pushpaka Vimana, Valmiki says that Rama points out to a particular island and says, it was right here that Mahadeva blessed me to cross the oceans. There we pause Valmiki for a moment and then come to the Kshetra Mahatmyam, where it is believed Rama forced himself to come down of the Pushpaka Vimanam. Let me tell you, Valmiki has no stoppings anywhere in the Pushpaka Vimanam. Once he starts, he reaches Bharata's place, and only there the Pushpaka Vimanam comes down. But here there are, if you take other Kshetra Puranams cutting across Tamil Nadu and Andhra, there are hundreds of temples, literally, I tell you. If only Rama had visited all of them, he would have taken another 14 years to go back, even in this Pushpaka Vimanam. That is how strong the Kshetra Puranams are. The Sthala Puranams are definitely very, very respected literature, very, very specific to religious traditions. It strengthens your belief system, it strengthens your thought process, but at academic level, it is to be valued as a piece of literature which is very beautiful in its own way, but cannot be used as a pramanam unless and otherwise it is bare minimum a part of a Mahapurana, like in the case of Rameshwaram. So the second stop over is when they are back to Ayodhya after the Rama-Ravana Yuddham, and Sita was also, I mean, of course, it is only very logical for Rama to stop there, because it was from there he prayed to Shiva and the war was victorious, and he won over, and on his way back, stop there to say a thanks is very logical. So that is where the Sthala Puranam expands into another few chapters, and it says about how the Brahmahati cannot be crowned as a king. Just in case to get rid of this obstacle, if any, the Rishis and the other Tapasvis suggested Rama to perform a Shiva Puja, and for which he was asked to earn a Shivalingam all the way from Varanasi, and who but Hanuman with all his might and power can travel to Varanasi and bring back the Shivalingam. It is believed that, of course, he was, in fact, some Puranas are very specific about in which Ghat of Ganga Hanuman was advised to get a Shivalingam from. So Hanuman goes there, and Kasi, for people who have visited, it is just Shivalingam. I personally believe more than the population of voters there, you have many Shivalingams in Kashi. So much so that even the Mahatmyam just gets added on with new Shivalingams coming up. So with so many Shivalingams, of course, for even a person like Hanuman, it took some time for him to identify those specific Shivalingams and bring them back to Rameshwaram by when the time was up. And so Sita managed to make another Shivalingam out of the beach sand, and Rama started his worship. Since Hanuman was late, the Shivalingams that he brought were installed just next to the Moolalingam. So by tradition, the first Shivalingam there was Ramanathan Swami, who was installed by Rama himself, another one by Sita, and the third one which was brought down from Varanasi by Hanuman. So, and then the Sthala Puranam extends itself to say how Hanuman felt bad that his Shivalingam is not being worshipped, and so Rama promised that, going by the temple tradition, every day the first rituals will be for this Shivalingam which Hanuman brought, and then the Moolasthana Lingam will be worshipped, which is quoted as a proof for the temple traditions that they follow today. So the temple opens early in the morning, and the first rituals are performed to this Shivalingam which was brought by Hanuman, and then the Sanctum Sanctorum doors open and the main rituals are conducted to Ramanatha Swami. So this is how Ramayana's context with Rameshwara Kshetram is pretty much very strongly brought in by the Sthala Purana. Now, going to Sri Ramayana, as I told you, there is one slokam which is causing a lot of academic discussions, discussion/academic discussions. There have been multiple representations from either sides between the Shaivites and the Vaishnavites. Both of them accept Ramayana. It is an itihasa. You cannot say no to it. It is an itihasa which cuts across your faith systems, and it is a pramana, no doubt about it. Much more a pramana than even the Puranas, because when there is a contradiction between itihasa and Purana, we will have to take what the itihasa says, if at all there is a contradiction. So, sticking on to that academic law, the Shiva Puja, which Rama is believed to have performed. Now, without that being an ancient tradition, a Purana, so many Puranas to quote this, and an entire temple town being developed based on this belief is not quite possible. So, giving the benefit of doubt, let's just see, and of course, Kamban has not even mentioned what Valmiki has. Valmiki at least goes in a very, very subtle way, says, asks Rama to tell this out and say that at this point, exactly here, this very sacred spot, I was blessed by Mahadeva. Kamban is very clear. For him, he was as much a Vaishnavite, I would say. So, he was very particular. There is no scope for any other gods to be even guessed as, a primary deity. So, he is very particular. In fact, Valmiki is very casual in his approach when he says Rama performed a Sandhyanusthana where he gave an arkyam to Brahma, calls him as Devadeva, and Skanda Purana, Skanda Avatar part is there where Rama gets to listen to Subramanya Jananam, Kumara Sambhavam through Vasishta. So all of this is there, but Kamban is very, very particular. If anything, he is in fact deviated from Valmiki to sing the praise of Narasimha for a set of songs, which was of course challenged by the scholars then. But this spot, this particular space, he is very, very quiet. There is absolutely no mention about, in fact, Rama telling that he was blessed. So, going to this specific slokam. Okay, this is the 123rd sargam of Yuddha Kandam and the 19th, partly 20th slokam, which causes all of this confusion. Yetat kukshau samudrasya skandavarani veshanam atra purvam mahadeva prasadam akarot prabhu. So, Rama says, roughly translated, this means, Etat Kukshau Samudrasya. Right at that point, Etat, this is exactly the spot where the army managed to camp for the first time in this particular island. Etat Kukshau Samudrasya. Right there in the island, in between the Samudra, right there, is where the army managed to, Skanda here is the army managed to camp first, and here, Atra Purvam Mahadeva Prabhu Prasadham. He says, right here, as a prasadham of my Prabhu Mahadeva, I was able to start construction. Then of course the slokam continues to speak about the specific sanctity of the place. And in fact, Rama says, of the three worlds, Trilokya, of all the three worlds, this is the most sacred spot. That is how Rama describes Rameshwaram. If not for this word of Rama, much more than even Ayodhya itself, Rameshwaram is popular as a Tirtha Kshetra to visit as a mandate at par with Varanasi. If not for Rama's description at that level. So, Mahadeva Shabdam here. So, we can at a level understand that Rama refers to somebody who has blessed him immensely. He calls the very act of constructing the Setu, the bridge there, and being victorious and all of that put together, whatever happened after that, as a prasadham of Mahadeva Prabhu. Yeah, so this is from Valmiki. Thankfully, of course, there is still a school which believes that this is a later period addition, and even the sloka is not of Valmiki. I'm not taking them because there have been serious discussions on this slokam considering its originality. So let us stick on to that. So if you believe that this slokam is therein, there is a Mahadeva. Let's discuss who it is after the slide. There is a Mahadeva to whom Rama points out and says, this gentleman is the reason, and his blessings in abundance has caused my army to cross the ocean and do whatever happened after that. Yeah. So, having accepted this slokam, and also accepting that Rama praises somebody as Mahadeva, the leader of all the celestials, Devadideva, who exactly is this person? So, without much of a scope to just remove this slokam off or brush it down, there have been scholars on the Shaivite and the Vaishnavite denomination who have not answered or not just spoken, but have published books on Mahadeva Shabdam to prove as to it is Shiva on one side and that it is not Shiva and it is someone else on the other side. So Shiva apparently comes right in the center there. If this whether this Mahadeva Shabdam there belongs to Shiva or not has become the popular point of discussion. Now, who is this Mahadeva? If you consider as a straightforward answer, Mahadeva Shabdam, starting from Vedas. And of course, the Pramanas that we have starting from Vedas have this tradition of celebrating anybody by similar names. Yeah, I mean, Indran in some places is referred to as the leader of all the gods, the leader of all living beings. Who not? Just anybody can be described by any word that way. But we will have to really get into specifics as to who exactly will Mahadeva ever be an apt name for. Starting from Prabala Pramanas, Mahadeva as a Shabdam refers to Shiva, and that we have a Kshetram right there at the island, from where Rama is believed to have constructed the Setu, and from where his journey to Sri Lanka started. And the Kshetram also being extremely steeped in time and not exactly as to when it came up and all that is not even known, that it is associated with Rama ever since, Rama's visit ever since. We can very easily associate Mahadeva Shabdam there in that slokam to belong to Shiva. Because much later, as a continuation of this travelogue, Rama also points out to Shvetaranya, and this is also in Ramayana, Sri Ramayana. He points out to Shvetaranya Kshetram and says, right here in the deep forest, long back, Mahadeva protected his very ardent devotee called Markandeya Maharishi. Shvetaranyam is in Tamil Nadu pretty much called as Thiruvenkadu today, just next to which is Thirukkadayur, where Markandeya Maharishi performed Shiva Puja and Swami comes down as Kalasamhara Murti. When Yama came down threatening Markandeya, Shiva comes out of the Moola Lingam and manages to slay Yama. He proclaimed death on the god of death. So Rama quotes this and says, right here this also happened. So Rama pointing out to Shiva as somebody who can win over death, who can win over time, who is much beyond all this, can be accepted at a level because Rama praises Brahma, Rama praises all the other Vedic gods who are to be praised during a Sandhya Vandana Anushtana and more. So calling Shiva as Mahadeva by Rama need not necessarily be brushed down. So by and large, while we accept that Mahadeva Shabdam there refers to Rama, and this one slokam, this one reference is enough to say that Rama has installed some Shivalingam somewhere, worshipped it before building the Setu. So that is acceptable by and large. But for another faction of devotees who might not actually accept that Rama, who is none but an avatar of Sriman Narayana, can worship Shiva and call him as Mahadeva, come up with a very interesting study on the Mahadeva Shabdam and try and prove their might to say how this Mahadeva here need not necessarily mean Shiva. Okay, if it is not Shiva, who is it? Of course, this will be the question, right? When you say it is not Shiva, who exactly is this? And that is where the only possibility of identifying Mahadeva Shabdam with none but Samudra Raja or Varuna comes in. In fact, a very popular tapasvi, a very extremely popular mendicant in one of his personal talks apparently to his prime devotee or a student was telling that people are fine with accepting Varuna to have blessed Rama, but have a serious problem accepting that Shiva blessed Rama. Of all, they are fine with Varuna blessing Rama, but to accept for a fact that Shiva blessed Rama is something that is not palatable. Okay, so Samudra Raja. Of course, Rama's interactions with Samudra Raja is very dramatic and quite important in the Ramayana list of Sharanagati, because Samudra Rajan himself performs a Sharanagati there. So Rama comes down in search of Sita. Of course, the Vanara Sainyam comes in, Hanuman's visit to Lanka. So Sita's presence in Lanka is understood and they come back. And now it was time to cross the ocean and enter Lanka. The only way to do it is to literally cross the ocean. And Rama was requesting Samudra Raja to help him with an otherwise very tough and a challenging task. With an army, with a battalion of monkeys to cross the ocean is not going to happen. And there is also a reference to how Samudra Raja promises that not just the waves, but also the crocodiles in the deep ocean will stay quiet till your army crosses. Much later, he even promises that. So the only way to reach Lanka was to cross the ocean. And Rama waits there for a long time, 3 days or 7 days if I'm right. So he waits there, literally, on a mat of darba grass. And that is how the Kshetram of Darbhasayanam comes into picture. That is another very popular Divyadesam, in fact, sanctified by the hymns of the Alvars, Thirumangai Alvar, very near Ramanathapuram. And so there the Kshetram, of course, the Kshetra Puranam there also speaks about how the temple existed much before even Rama came in. Because Dasharatha is believed to have come there and worship. So Rama only comes there much later. The temple was already there. And Rama prays to Samudra Raja right there at the on the coast. He literally, he falls flat and gets into a meditation, a yoga, and waits for Samudra Raja to accept his prayers. But having waited so long, and even Rama's patience being tested, at one point he really gets ferocious. He orders Saumitri or Lakshmana to get him his bow and arrow and says, right this moment with one arrow, I'll make sure that the entire ocean is dried. And we can very casually walk across the ocean and walk into Sri Lanka. Chapamanaya Saumitre, he says, get me my chapa. Saumitri, bring me my arrow and bow and just one weapon and I'll make sure that the entire ocean dries up. Yeah. Padabhyam yantu plavanga mahangra. We'll just walk across. What big deal? I can dry this up. Complete ocean can be dried by one arrow and we can just walk across the ocean. And that is when Samudra Rajan is believed to, as the painting there depicts, is believed to have come running along with his maidens to request Rama. And this is in fact one of the Sharanagati as such. This is the Sharanagati that Samudra Raja performed. He comes running to Rama, praying Abhayam to Rama and falls at his feet and says, well, please understand, I am under the control of Ravana and I have been assigned the task of protecting the city of Lanka by forming my own orbit of water around the city. And so if I am going to permit you, I will definitely be punished by Ravana and I am worried about it. But now that you have come as a threat to my life, well, I will just settle down my waves. And he promises to make sure that the crocodiles will also be mute up until your army crosses the ocean. Saying so, he is believed to have lowered his level, reduced all his tides, froze them all, and the crocodiles were also muted for the army of monkeys under the leadership of Hanuman and all of them there to cross and walk into it. Now, and he also says, Rama karishyami yathastalam, I will make place for you. Whatever place you need, stalam you need, I will do it for you. So he in fact draws a carpet for Rama and his army to cross the ocean and reach Lanka. If this is the interaction that Rama and Samudra Raja had, Rama threatening Samudra Raja, promising to dry him up with that one arrow of his, and then Samudra Raja coming and praying to him, will it be even logical to say that Rama points out to Sita, now going back to that slokam, Rama pointing out to Sita and telling, Atra Purvam Mahadeva Prabhu Prasadam. Can he say that it was the prasadam of Samudra Raja? After having threatened him with one arrow, he promises to dry it up and Samudra Rajan comes running to him, falling at his feet, requesting him to be patient and bless him and tell him all the story of how he was fearing his life being threatened by Ravana and all that, and still Rama call him as Prabhu Mahadeva and say, hey Sita, it was right here, I was blessed immensely by Samudra Raja. If anything, Samudra Raja can probably tell his wife that right at this point I was blessed by the benevolence of Rama. Yeah, I mean, he in fact spared my life and that is from here only he started construction, is probably to be quoted by Samudra Raja. It does not really logically fit into a case where we expect Rama to call Samudra Raja to be Mahadeva and calling him as his Prabhu and telling Sita how benevolent he was to permit him to cross the ocean. But of course, we have had such brilliant scholars and a language like Sanskrit with which you can work out wonders where each word can find different meaning and you will have to fit it into the context to understand it. But the cases where people have argued, you read one section of it, on one side of it, you will be convinced to believe that side. That is the academic prowess that these great Mahans, in fact, I would say, had in the last century, especially when all of this got published, to discuss about Mahadeva Shabdam there, and finally, without much of a choice to accept or give up, there is one faction which believes Mahadeva is Shiva and Rama has been blessed by Shiva, and then there is this other faction who really want to believe that Mahadeva is none but Samudra Raja or Varuna, and they are okay with Rama praying to Varuna and calling him as Mahadeva and Prabhu. So these are this is exactly where the problem with respect to Rameshwaram being a place where Rama performed Shiva Puja happens, and the subtle proof is what Valmiki says there about Mahadeva Prabhu Prasadam. Now, after Ramayana, of course, you have a series of other equally ancient, if not equally ancient, close to it, from the Mahapuranas as such. Yeah, after the Itihasas, we have the Ashtarasa Mahapuranas, all attributed to none but Suta Puranika through Vedavyasa himself. So, we will have to consider them also. In Adhyatma Ramayanam, which is a part of the Brahmanda Purana, entire Ramayana is being, an abridged version of it is discussed in Brahmanda Purana, wherein the Ramayana Kshetra Mahatmyam happens. The Rameshwara Kshetra Mahatmyam happens. So, this is probably one of those earliest works where the Moolamurti of Rameshwaram is addressed to as Ramanatha Swami himself. Yeah. Rameshwaram Shivam, Tatra Rameshwaram Shivam. It says, Pranametu Setu Bandaya, Krishtva Rameshwaram Shivam. It was here that Setu Bandhanam was performed. Setu is cutting across and bridging the gap. So, this was constructed right here, and Rameshwara Kshetra is for Rameshwara Shivam. Brahmamatyadi Pape Dhyo, including Brahmahatti. All kinds of sins one is cleansed of by a visit to Muchyate Madunagrahat. Muchyate Madanugrahat. So, Shiva himself says that here all sins, including Brahmahatti also, one is cleansed of Brahmahatti also by coming to Rameshwara Kshetram, and this is an entire chapter where Rama's first visit to that island, and then installing the Shivalinga Murti, and then that island being called as Rameshwaram, and Rama's visit to Sri Lanka, war, everything is described there. And there the Palashruti part very clearly speaks about how even something as worse as the Brahmahatti, one is cleansed of even Brahmahatti by a visit to Rameshwara Kshetram. And it was here that the Agni Tirtham, or the coastal stretch in Rameshwaram, is called as Agni Tirtham. And interestingly, as a belief, till date you don't see waves there. That is one stretch in the east coast where you don't have waves at all. And most of the times it's only knee-deep water, even up to 100 meters inside the ocean. That is how special the coast right in front of the temple is. So all of this, it might be a geographical reason, obviously, the formation of the land and how the sea waves are controlled, but it definitely is very, very godly to understand for even somebody to come up with a story like this, identifying a spot like that and say, hey, you know why the waves are not there? It is from the days that Rama worshipped, it is how it is. I simply fall, this makes it amazing for me. You know, for this having been done thousands of years back, and as a tradition being believed and followed, only to strengthen your belief system when you visit it and when you actually look at it, makes me fall for this. So here, coming back to Rameshwaram, the Agni Tirtham stretch and the Mahatvam of the Agni Tirtham and what you get by visiting Agni Tirtham, taking a dip there, and all that is also described as a part of the Brahmanda Puranam. Padma Puranam, again, which is a part of the Satvika Puranam, because there is also the tradition of not accepting all the 18 by a few traditional faith systems. Some believe that only 6 out of the 18 Puranas can be accepted as Satvika Puranam. Thankfully, we have Padma Puranam, which is a part of the Satvika list, where again Rama says Vibhishana also visited this place. Rama says Vibhishana Charanagati, which is of course described for having happened on the beach, on the sea coast by Valmiki. And in fact, it was only the Lavana Tirtham, or the salt water, which was used for the Pattabhishekam. There was no scope for Punya Tirtham and a Kalasa Sthapanam and all that. Rama says, Lakshmana, go ahead, perform the Pattabhisheka for Vibhishana, and it was only the sea water that was used, the salt water from the sea was used for Pattabhishekam. So Rama very clearly says, Vibhishana seeing the lingam of Ramanatha, he says that anybody who worships here, they break the chains of bondage and they are free. They attain salvation. Then you have, of course, Skanda Puranam, where you again have the Brahmakundam is one part of the Skanda Puranam where several Tirthams and several important shrines are discussed. So here, again, there is a reference to how one is cleansed of Brahmahatti, and the Agni Tirtham there is believed to be in the spot where Vibhishana's Charanagati and Vibhishana Pattabhishekam was performed by Rama, and it talks about this Kshetram being a Prayachittam for worst of the sins anybody can even think. Shiva Mahapuranam and Linga Puranam, both of which are very core Shaiva Purana, of course, speaks about starting from the war before which Rama prayed to Ramanatha Lingam. By then, before the times of these Puranas, of course, it would have become a Jyotirlingam, one of the 12 Jyotirlingams. Several of the Mahapuranas has exclusively assigned the chapters where the Jyotirlinga Mahatmyam is described at length. So here again, the Ramanatha Jyotirlingam, for having been blessed, installed and worshipped by Rama, finds a special mention, and so he prays to the Lingamurti there before the war and after the war. Then Linga Puranam also speaks about how the Tapasvis, the Rishis, celebrating the victory of Rama, suggest that he performs a Shiva Puja to cleanse himself of Brahmahatti, because, as I told you, somebody with Brahmahatti cannot be crowned as a king. So they suggest this is the Mukti Kshetram, this is the Tirtha Kshetram, install a Shivalingam here and worship him. And it is only in the Linga Puranam where the story of Hanuman being commissioned by Rama to go all the way to Varanasi and bring a lingam from there, and how Hanuman was delayed in coming back, and how Sita Devi ended up in making a Shivalingam out of her own hands, and how that lingam was worshipped prior. And then, of course, when Hanuman returns, the lingams that he brought were also installed and worshipped. Not to forget Tulasidasa's Ramacharita-manas, though it is much, much later in time. By his times at least, by around the 1600s, we can be sure that his Ramacharita-manas has very detailed description to Rameswara Kshetram and the Shiva Pujai that he performed. We cannot push the fact that Tulasidas was a Goswami who belongs to a very, very staunch Vaishnavite school, where none but, not even Sriman Narayana, it is either Rama or Krishna for them. That is where they place the avatars. For them, the Moola Swarupam is of Rama or Krishna. That's how important Rama Tattvam for them is. So he, of course, accepts this about the Kshetram and says how Shiva blessed Rama there at Ramacharita, at Rameswara Kshetram. Not to forget the two Tirumurai Acharyas, Thiruñana Sambandar and Thirunavukarasar Appar Swamigal, both of whom were from the 7th century, who have travelled quite extensively, who were certainly well equipped. Because I'm using the Tirumurais here because sometimes there is also this very popular trend in academics to say that the Puranas are all completely misinterpreted, or a lot of new information has been added and omitted, and the dates of, the challenge of assigning centuries and dates to Purana is also there. Nevertheless, the Tirumurais of the Shaiva tradition here, the canonical works, are not contested at that level. So we can be very sure that around the 7th century, when these two blessed religious bards were busy travelling across India, they have definitely visited Ramanathapuram, Rameswara Kshetram. In fact, Gnana Sambandar stayed there for some time to sing about the shrines in Sri Lanka from Rameshwaram. Rameshwaram is, of course, one of the 14 Padal Petra Sthalangal in the Pandya territory for the Shaivites. And so there he says, Deviyai Vavviya Tennilangai Tasamamugan Pu Viyalum Mudi Pondruvitta Padi Poi Ara Yeviyalum Silai Annal Seida Viramechuram Meviya Sindainargal Tammel Vinay Vidume. Here, Gnana Sambandar very clearly refers to Yeviyalum Silai Annal. Silai is a bow. So the one who has mastered the bow is Rama here, and how he Puviyalum Mudi Pondruvitta Padi Poi Ara, for having cleansing himself of the sins that he probably earned by killing Ravana, had visited this place. Of course, Ravana is not being celebrated here. The sin that he committed is there in the first line. Deviyai Vavviya Tennilangai Tasamamuhan. So the one who abducted Sita was slain by Rama, and Rama came here to cleanse himself of the Brahmahatti and installed a Shivalingam here. Annal Seida Viramechuram. So much before Rama, Rameshwaram was not even there. It is after all named after him. So the town, the deity and the Tirtham, all three were commissioned by Rama himself. Annal Seida Viramechuram, Meviya Sindainargal Tammel Vinay Vidume. So somebody who visits Rameshwaram, as Gnana Sambandar says, will be cleansed of all their sins, their karma. Deviyai Vavviya Tennilangai Arayan Tiral Vati Yeviyal Venchilai Annal Nannumi Ramechurattare Naviyan Gnana Sambandan Nalla Mozhiyal Navindrethum Paviyan Malai Vallaravar Thamvinai Ayina Patrarume. Again, he in the Palashruti talks about how Deviyai Vavviya Tennilangai Arayan Tiral Vati. Rama challenged the might of Ravana, who abducted Sita, and Yeviyal Venchilai Annal Nannumi Ramechuram. So the town of Rameshwaram is where Rama came, resided there for some time, did the Shiva Pujai. This is from Gnana Sambandar, 7th century. Following him, a contemporary of his was Thirunavukarasar, aka Appar Peruman. He also has visited Rameshwaram and has sung songs there. Vankannar Valarakkar Valvinai Ondra Ariyar Punkannar Ahi Nindra Porgal Seidare Matti Senganmal Seida Koyil Thiruvi Ramechuram. Again, Senganmal here is Rama as an incarnation of Sriman Narayana, how he commissioned the temple of Rameshwaram, who caused the temple of Rameshwaram. He says, Senkanmal Seida Koyil Thiruvi Rameshwaram. So, around 7th century, it has been a very, very popular, accepted theory that Rameshwaram was caused by Rama, his visit there, and to cleanse himself of the Brahmahatti, which is what several Puranas, including Padma, Linga, Skanda, Shiva Purana, also echoes. So it cannot be just called an addition at somebody's convenience, but it has been an accepted theory from the 7th century Tamil works and the Puranas, which are, if any, older or at least as old as these Tirumurai verses. Palavunadimai செய்து பார்த்தன் மேல் குழுமி வந்த கொலைவிலார் கொடியராய அரக்கரை கொன்று வீழ்த்த சிலையினான் செய்த கோயில் திருவிராமேஸ்வரம். Once again, how he verily killed the army of Rakshasas who came to fight on side of Rama and on the side of Ravana and managed to emerge victorious. He, Silayinan, the master of bow, so he, Seida Koyil Thiruvirameshwaram. So once again, I've just chosen 2 from the set of 11 verses, all the 11 of which describes Rama's visit there very clearly and how he worshipped. And then there are other kshetrams also where Rama's visit to Rameshwaram has been sung by the Nayanmars in their works. I'm just concluding with that. Senkanmal Silai Pidithu Senayodum Sedubandanam Seidu Sendru Pukku பொங்குபோர் பல செய்து புகழால் வென்ற போரரக்கன் நெடுமுடிகள் பொடியாய் வீழ அங்கொருதன் திருவிரலால் இறையே யூன்றி அடர்த்தவர்க்கே அருள் புரிந்த அடிகள் இந்நாள் வங்கமலி கடல் புடை சூழ் மாடவீதி வலம்புரமே புக்கங்கு மன்னினாரே. This is another town called Thiruvalampuram on the coast. So probably visiting this place, which is also on the coast, Gnana Sambandar was reminded of Rameswara Kshetram. So he gives a very detailed account of how Senkanmal Silai Pidithu Senayodum Sedubandanam Seidu Sendru Pukku Pongupor Pala Seidu Pugalal Vendra Porarakkan Nedumudigal Podiyai Veeda Angorudan. So Ravana's being slain by Rama and the Sedubandanam being performed, and all of that is described. So Ramayana has been accepted and several scenes of Ramayana has been described in the Tirumurai work. So the Tirumurai Acharyas were for sure well versed and well informed in the Ramayana scripture and the landscape, the sacred landscape that comes along with it. So I'd like to conclude. There is no doubt about the antiquity of Rameswara Kshetram and how it becomes an iconic pilgrimage, only which can be compared at par with Varanasi for Indians and extended Indian subcontinent. Shiva Puja in Ramayanam is understood or accepted as a fact through that one slokam, which is the 19th slokam in the 123rd Sarga of Yuddha Kandam, where Rama explains to Sita all that had happened in her absence and makes it a point to tell her, point out to a particular island and tell her that it was right there I was blessed by Mahadeva, whose prasadam caused me to cut across the ocean, walk along with my army. Now, the word of Mahadeva Shabdam there becomes a point of controversy, point of discussion, academic and non-academic discussions, which interpretations points out to either Shiva or Varuna. So, my paper here was to present the case of how Mahadeva Shabdam suits that of Shiva. So, apart from using the word Mahadeva, the other Puranas and Stotras, both in Sanskrit and Tamil, ancient ones, which speak for Rama's performance of a Shiva Puja there. On the other hand, I don't think there is any verse which talks about Rama praying to Varuna anywhere. None of the other Ramayanas, there are hundreds of versions of Ramayana in different regional languages across India, some even folk and very tribal in nature. None of it ever refers to a supposed worship of Rama to Samudra Raja. It is always Samudra Raja Sharanagati to Rama, requesting to spare his life. But I don't think there is any Ramayana version which talks about Rama's supposed worship to Varuna. On the other hand, there are half a dozen Ramayana, several Ramayana versions, in fact, and half a dozen Puranas from the 18 Mahapuranas, which speaks about Rama's worship to Shiva right at Rameshwaram and how the Kshetram is to be understood. Not to forget the Tirumurai references, which again is clear evidence to a strong belief of Rama coming to Rameshwaram and worshipping Shiva there as early as 6th, 7th century here in Tamil Nadu. With that, I rest my case. Thank you. Murthy Ellam Vali, Engal Mona Guru Vali, Arul Vartha Endrum Vali, Andar Vali Paravaram. Ellam Sri Tyagaraja Kutai, Sri Tyagaraja Maharaja Vijayashu, Arura Tyagesha. Thank you.